regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Spring Independent School District is officially called to order on Tuesday, June 13th, 2017. The time is now 5:12 p.m. Board trustees present are Donald Davis, Jim Gonzalez, Justin Durant, Deborah Jensen, and Wanda Newsom. At this time, we are taking up the agenda item related to the Level 3 complaint brought by Ms. Liz Palacios, former Spring ISD employee. Since the Level 3 complaint involves the employment and dismissal of a public employee, we will now move into closed session under sections 551.071, 551.074, and 551.082 of the Texas Open Meetings Act. At the conclusion of the hearing, we will return to open session to take any appropriate action regarding the hearing. The time is now 5:13 p.m. We will now reconvene and resume the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. The time is now 5:40 p.m. Do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I move to deny the grievance of Ms. Palacios and uphold the decision of the Level 2 hearing officer.
Second.
It has been moved by Janet Gonzalez and seconded by Don Davis to uphold the Level 2 hearing decision. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. This concludes the hearing on this matter. A letter notifying both parties of the action of the board should be prepared and signed by the Director of Board Services as soon as practical. The board will now recess the meeting for a short break until 7 p.m. The time is now 5:40 p.m.
Even though they hear the same material and content, a different voice would make it more relative to them, and it would give them less they need to get on that.
I like to ask them is, what do you guys need help with? What do you really need help with? And so they tell me, and then I make my lesson plans based on what they tell me.
But if you're going to improve their confidence, I noticed the change. Like, I also presented to some of the skills. I noticed the change, like, I felt answering questions and reading out loud.
They can share a lot of information about not only the subject matter, which is reading or math preparation for the STAR test, but they can also talk to them about a number of other things, like what is high school like.
You're getting that in high school stuff, and they'll do like SATs. Y'all gonna want to look at the questions first. We don't know where to look because you don't have time.
One thing I hope kids get out of this experience is that they learn that just never to give up. You have to find help, find people to help you. We have to work together. That's the only way that anybody can get anything done in this life, is working together.
As you can see, that truly epitomizes the Spring Way and what we want for all of our students across the district. We will continue to offer summer training for our principals and teachers over the summer and continue to make strides in moving the district forward. This does conclude my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. I will now ask trustees if they would like to make any remarks.
I have a couple. I'll go first. So I wanted to just share a couple of things this evening. I first want to send a special thanks to Trustee Bell, who participated in Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Bridging the Gap event that occurred on May 23rd at the Emil Campbell Center. Our chapter supports districts in the North Harris County. We have 5 districts in which we support. And we had a panel participation discussion, and included in that panel were trustees from Cy-Fair, Humboldt, Klein, Aldine, and Spring ISD. And the discussion focused on what issues and legislation are currently affecting your district. And then we had a second topic that talked about the results of a bond election, what occurs after that bond passes. We had over 50 individuals that attended. We had some really engaged and good questions that were asked during the time. The residents came out and they spoke about bond elections, new schools. They had questions about classroom sizes and testing. And I really believe in the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority chapter in Spring also believes that it's important that we bridge the gap with our neighboring school districts, because if we come together and we begin a dialogue between the district and the community, we can work together to move forward as we try to emphasize the importance of the surviving of public education, because right now public education is under attack. It was a great event. I want to thank Trustee Bell for representing Spring ISD on the panel, and we're looking to have some additional panel discussions with our neighboring school districts in the fall, so I was really excited about that. I did just kind of also wanted to share, Board President Dr. Jensen appointed a couple of ad hoc committees this year. And one of the committees that she asked us to formulate was around governance and oversight. And myself, and I want to also thank Trustee Donald Davis for participating with us on that committee, along with Deborah Jensen and Dr. Watson, and we had some great successes this year. One of the things that we implemented is the Board of Trustees Employee Recognition Award, which will actually start in the fall, so we're really excited about that. In addition to that, we partnered with the other school districts to sign a resolution to participate in Join One Voice Texas Public Education. I think there are 13 to 15 school districts that are participating in that because there's strength in numbers. In addition to that, we got a couple of current agenda items. We're looking at policy around and how it supports our curriculum and instruction. We're also taking a look at some of our policies around rental agreements. And so I'm really excited about the work that we're doing, and I want to thank Deborah Jensen for her vision and my committee for their support this year.
And Don Davis for bringing the One Voice petition to us.
Yes, absolutely. And so I'm just really excited about what we're doing. I wanted to share with the community tonight some of the great things that are happening and that the board's engaged in outside of just sitting in this meeting once a month. And I'm looking forward to us continuing to be a governing body as you have elected us to be.
President Jensen and Dr. Watson, our leadership team, I have two comments I'd like to offer tonight. First of all, today is the ROTC Departments in Spring having their graduation at 1800 at 6 o'clock, where you want to refer to. As a matter of fact, it's going on right now. The basis is we have a camp for the program here locally for our cadets, and also they get a chance to go to camp at the individual sites. Like if you're in the Army, you get a chance to go to San Antonio, and if you're Navy, you go to your Boy Scout camp outside of Conroe. But spring participation in their camp was this week, and it ends tonight. It ended at 1800, 6 p.m. tonight. I wish that next year that it will not be a conflict, because those cadets are doing some great things that we need to go out and see and support. They do some great things, and their leadership they displayed on these camps is beyond. It's incredible, and I was going to add it on. Also, I want to add on to about our mission statement. You know, we have a mission statement that we want to be globally recognized by 2020. That means that whole nation be able to see who we are, be on the map what we're all about. And I just wanted to thank Dr. Watson. Last month we got a magazine on governance, and our nutrition care department was highlighted. And Dr. Watson didn't know the article, and that's how we get our names out at a national, international level. And I want to thank Dr. Watson and Nutrition Care. First of all, Dr. Watson for their leadership, and the Nutrition Care Division for what they've done. We recognize at a national level that type of publication.
Trustee Durant mentioned something that education is under attack, and we just finished a legislative session, and there's a special session that starts next month. We'll be in San Antonio this week to get an update on all of that, but the changes in public education continued. And just on that note, Don mentioned the fact that we strive to be recognized, and about 20 years ago we were called a beacon of light for really districts not only across the state but across the country, and some of the operational practices that we were doing. And when you think about public schools, they are beacons. Sometimes public schools are the only green space that a community has. Spring High School, during one of the hurricanes, was opened as an evacuation center. So I don't think people give public education and our facilities and our staff the credit that they deserve. We're the major employers typically for communities and for towns. And now, when you think about it, we're going to now be graded A through F. And if you think about a community getting an F-rated school or an F-rated district, the impact that that will have on a whole town sometimes. So we want to encourage you all to be proponents of public education and tell folks that, we are beacons out there.
Just an FYI to Dr. Watson, I know you're happy and I'm happy too about our sidewalks, but the process was not to stop here. As you know, the sidewalks, we first started meeting with Commissioner Locke, and now that we have a new commissioner that's on board, I've had an opportunity to meet with Commissioner Ellis, and I must say he was delighted to continue the work that the previous commissioner had started, and is willing to continue to work with us with some additional improvements within the next year or so. He said it just takes time, the process of getting the paperwork initiated and done, but he plans to continue working with us.
I'd like to just recognize our communications department. Thank y'all for all of the information that's out on Facebook and Twitter and the website. There are so many things going on, and it's just a delight to log on to Twitter every day and see the activities and teachers being recognized, students going off to camp, and it's just, again, exciting to see all of the great things that are going on in Spring ISD. So, Tiffany, to your department of communications, you guys are doing a great job of keeping the word that Spring ISD is going places. So thank you.
Karen, a big shout out to Karen.
Yeah,
She's doing a
great job. You guys are doing a wonderful job.
I'd like to finish up the trustee comments with reiterating information that I think most of our community knows, but I think it bears repeating. We are now getting over $200 million of our bond money to start some major projects across our district, badly needed projects. I would like to remind you that all the trustees file a financial disclosure every year that is public information, so that you can see if anybody has any contacts with businesses or relatives in businesses. So we maintain the highest ethics in our dealing with money. The other thing is we have an unusual role. When I first came on the board, I realized that SASB advised you not to be an advocate. We may be part of a political party, but we don't push that in the district. I mean, I could be a vegetarian, I'm not, but I could be pushing no meat in the schools, that would be inappropriate. I mean, sometimes it's ridiculous, but, we have our belief system, and it's very important to our work and the kinds of projects we work on, but we are not an advocate for just a single group or a single ideology. The other thing is, one of our roles is oversight. Now, that doesn't mean we go micromanage and go look in somebody's file cabinet somewhere. In past years, we have huge volumes of reports that we read every month. And more news releases, and we have quite a few information sources that I'm sure we have at least novels worth, or several novels worth of reading every month and keeping track of everything in the district. We also have an internal auditor now, who she and her assistant go out and have identified some of the highest risk areas in Spring ISD, and go out and see how those areas, or sometimes it's a department, sometimes it's a federal funding source, that we're doing that properly. We also now have a fraud hotline in Spring ISD, and that's one way we get information. The other thing is, we trustees do not, let's say, we I will make that a positive statement. We welcome letters and contacts from our community, students, parents, employees, taxpayers. We really welcome those communications because sometimes that's the only way we start to learn about some issue in our community, and it usually sends us off asking questions and finding out what the issues are. We would not serve anybody well if we just took one information source, so we try to verify and find out what is going on. In the past, I've seen many ways a school board can be dysfunctional. One is to be a rubber stamp, that you know, anything that the employees of the district give you, you just accept as at face value. You know, we take our role of oversight seriously. Another thing is I've seen, not necessarily our school board, but I've seen school board members who went into situations where they were micromanaging or trying to be the principal of a school or trying to be a coach of a football team or that sort of thing. And that is not our role. So we want to work with the employees of Spring ISD and respect their expertise. And we work very hard to be ethical and functional. And that's what I wanted to say tonight. We will now continue with tonight's agenda. Our next item is the public hearing for the 2017-2018 Spring Independent School District budget. At this time, I would like to recognize our Chief Financial Officer, Ann Westbrooks.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen, Dr. Watson, and members of the board. I want to start by taking a look at the budget priorities that the board set out as we began this process to develop the 2017-2018 budget. And the priorities that were set were first and foremost literacy, with a focus on literacy for this next year and aligning dollars to go along with that focus. Ensuring that we have a competitive compensation package to make sure that we can not only hire but retain highly qualified staff. A balanced budget, elementary GT Center, a focus on restorative discipline initiatives, and then to ensure that we place dollars to fund the maintenance and operations costs related to the successful bond election that we had, especially with the bus drivers and our commitment to the 1 mile, as well as our commitment to expanding the full-day pre-K program within the district. So just taking a look at the budget timeline that we've gone through from September of 2016 through today. So we began the budget process a little bit earlier this year with a deep dive into our stipends, reviewing all the stipends that are received by our staff at the campus level to look at the jobs that they're doing, the supplemental assignments that they have, and reviewing job descriptions and aligning the pay with those job descriptions and those job duties. We took that information to the Principals Advisory Committee in November, sought their input, and moved forward from there. The remainder of the fall was used to calculate what we anticipated our revenues to be, what we anticipated our expenditures to be, and then continuing the process of having a zero-based budget for our departments. And so throughout that process, every department is required to create a line item justification for all dollars that are being requested as a part of the budget development. The board has met and discussed the budget since January of this year. Our first budget discussion started in January, and each month thereafter, as an update was provided on what the revenue estimations were progressing to be and what the expenditure estimates were each month. And that leads us to tonight, which is our public hearing and proposal for a budget for the board to adopt. So with any budget process, it's all based upon estimations and assumptions. So just to take a quick look at what estimates and what assumptions we have used to develop this budget, first and foremost, we are planning for a flat enrollment, and that flat enrollment is projected at 36,819 students. That information was developed based upon a review done by our Research and Accountability Department in conjunction with our outside demographers. Another large part of the budget development is what do we anticipate our tax revenue to be? And that, of course, is based upon our taxable values within the district. And we received an estimate of those values from the Harris County Appraisal District at the end of April, which has us at about $12.5 billion in taxable value, which is a 6.6% increase in values over the prior year. With that increase in values and with the new debt that we have associated with our bond election, we're anticipating needing $1.04 as our M&O tax rate to support the expenditures in the general fund, and then 47 cents in the interest and sinking fund, which will support our debt service payments. And so that 47-cent increase would represent a 4-cent increase in our tax rate, as was explained as we were planning for the bond election. The notice of tonight's hearing was, as legally required, was posted in the Houston Chronicle on May 31st. Here's just a look at our property tax values over the last 10 years. As you can see how we had our moment back in 2010-11 where we saw a drop-off in our values, as was everyone across Harris County. And then over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen quite a bit of an increase in our taxable value. So that dark blue represents the current estimate of taxable values, that $12.5 billion that I mentioned. The board is required to pass a budget for 3 of our funds, and that's the general fund, debt service, and the child nutrition fund. All of our other information that we provide in our budget documents is for informational purposes only and for planning purposes for the district, but the board is required to actually pass a budget on these 3 funds. So we're proposing for the board to approve tonight a general fund budget of $307,130,929, a debt service budget of $55,299,484, and a child nutrition budget of $26,879,475, which is a total operating budget proposed for your approval tonight of $389,309,888. So just to take a look at what's included in the general fund budget for this year, first and foremost, the full-day pre-K at 7 campuses. And so that is an expansion of the full-day pre-K program that we currently have in the district, which there's 5 campuses now, but expanding that to 7, but also absorbing the cost of those 5 campuses that are currently being funded by a high-quality pre-K grant that is no longer being funded by the state of Texas. It was not appropriated in the 85th legislative session. So the full cost of those 5 campuses, as well as the 2 additional full-day pre-K programs, is being funded in this budget. The 60 new bus drivers, which we've talked on already tonight, some new gifted and talented positions to help support the supplemental instruction that's needed for our gifted and talented students, 2 new eSchool positions that are housed in the technology department to support the eSchool software, an attendance incentive primarily for our bus drivers to promote good attendance for our bus drivers, as well as a recruitment incentive to help us get those 60 additional bus drivers that we need. A new Performing and Visual Arts Assistant Director, and then, as is required by House Bill 5, additional work hours for our pre-K staff. And then lastly, a salary raise of 2% for all staff, which will bring our starting teacher salary for the 17-18 school year to $52,275. So a couple of things with our salary raise, excuse me, is that will help offset the significant increase that our employees will see in their medical insurance premium starting with next year, as well as you heard Trustee Bell mention, the governor did call for a special session, which will begin in July, and one of the items that's listed in that special session is an unfunded mandate to increase our teacher salaries by a minimum of $1,000. And so with this 2% increase, as we understand what's being presented in the special session, is that the 2% that we would give would actually cover that requirement of the $1,000 raise for all teachers. The 2% represents just over $1,000 for our zero experience teachers and about an $1,100 raise for our average teacher. So here's a look at the revenues for the general fund and how those are broken out. So 56% of the revenues that we anticipate bringing in 2017-18 come from the state, which of course are based upon our average daily attendance as well as our student enrollment. And then 42.4% is local, which is of course largely made up of our tax collections. And then a small portion, 1.6%, is from federal sources. On the expenditure side, we see what we commonly see, and that's the largest piece of our expenditures coming from payroll, right at 87.3%. Then all of our other expenditure categories are fairly consistent with what we've seen over past years. Here's another look at our expenditures by the functional level as compared to the third budget review for the 2016-2017 year. And for the most part, in the functional categories, the per-student spending and the percentage of the budget are quite consistent with the prior year, with the exception of our student transportation category, which we know is a conscious effort to increase our bus drivers and increase the pay for our bus drivers there.
Can I just reference something?
Yes, sir.
When we go back and we look at the proposed budget, where our revenue sources, the bulk of what we get is state, of course local taxes and federal. And I don't think a lot of people realize the fact that we really don't get a lot of money from the federal government. You might want to speak to how that might impact, I don't know, where does the federal money go? Child nutrition, some of the other areas?
This particular chart is only looking at the general fund revenues, and so the largest portion of the federal revenue that we receive comes from what's called school health and related services, which is a reimbursement that we receive from the federal government for Medicaid eligible services that we provide to our students. So that makes up, of the $5 million, that makes up about $4 million of the federal dollars. The other portion is from the JROTC reimbursements that we receive, and then the indirect costs that we're able to charge on our federal funds.
Right, because my point is there's just a lot of discussion about cuts that might be coming down the pike. And, our concern is how would that potentially affect us. But again, when you look at the big pie, you don't get as much from the federal government.
Not in the general fund. Not in the general fund, no, sir. No. As far as the other sources, Title I and our special ed federal funding sources, we do receive quite a bit more in those funding sources. So between Title I and IDEA-B together, that's about $12 to $15 million each year that we receive. So a cut to those funding sources would absolutely have an impact on the district and the maintenance and operations costs. Just because the funding source goes away doesn't mean we don't need to provide those services. So it would impact.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If you'd go back one more slide about what's included in the 2017-2018 budget, I like to remind everybody on the gifted and talented that gifted and talented students are, I think, a special ed group of their own, and that by law we have to provide services to these kids. So this is a legal thing that we are fulfilling to have these new positions. Also, I know I was called about the salary raise where we were looking at 1% for the teachers, and we went to 2% because of the rising healthcare TRS care costs. I think that more and more of the burden's being put on the teacher to pay for their health insurance and less from the state government. And I just don't want all the teachers to go out and spend $1,000 tomorrow thinking they're going to get $1,000 more pay. It's something that they have any kind of option about. Their pay may actually go to mostly health care, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. We saw some significant increases in the premiums this year.
Thank you.
And this represents how much of an increase in our budget from last year?
In this comparison, it's about a $3 million increase when compared to the third budget review, but we actually have a one-time cost amount that is in the facilities acquisition and construction that skews those numbers quite a bit, and that's the purchase of our new educational facility. So if you were to remove that one-time cost, then it would be more like a $7 million increase between the two.
And of course, our debt service is like our mortgage, right?
Yes, we have to pay it.
Yes.
That's true.
Thank you.
Yes.
Westbrook. Ms. Hill, do we have anyone registered to speak to this agenda item under public hearing? As there are no identified speakers, let us continue with tonight's agenda. I will now entertain a motion to adopt the 2017-2018 Spring Independent School District budget as presented by the administration.
I move that the Board of Trustees adopt the 2017-2018 Spring Independent School District budget as presented by the administration.
Is there a second? It has been moved by Justine Durant and seconded by Ron Newhouse that we adopt the 2017-2018 Spring Independent School District budget. All those in, is there any discussion first? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. Our next item is public hearing for the 2017-2018 Optional Flexible School Day Program. At this time, I would like to recognize our Chief of School Leadership and Student Support Services, Dr. Lupita Hinojosa.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. Dr. Watson and members of the board, tonight I bring to you a renewal of our 24-hour 2017-2018 Optional Flexible School Day Program. We're asking that the board approve this renewal as we will be entering into our fourth year of the program, as we know it, ASAP, or Achieving Success Alternative Program. And the ASAP is a program that we've implemented in Spring ISD that provides flexible hours and days of attendance for our students in high school who are at risk, and they must meet the following criteria. These students are at risk of dropping out and or have dropped out. Additionally, these students may have been denied credit in one or more classes as a result of a class failure and or attendance. The goal of this project is to continue to improve our graduation rate for our students who are in danger of dropping out of school and or have dropped out of school or are behind in their core subjects. And so tonight, I ask the board, well, we have a public hearing so that we may review and approve this request.
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. Ms. Hill, do we have anyone registered to speak to this agenda item under public hearing?
No, Madam President, we do not.
As there are no identified speakers, let us continue with tonight's agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the proposed 2017-2018 Optional Flexible School Day Program as presented by the administration.
Before we have that motion, I know that Dr. Hinojosa has shared with us in the past some of the great successes of this program. Maybe you can highlight a couple of those.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Durant, for that opportunity. I do want to say that we have had, as of this last graduation, our students are enrolled right now, and we will have our summer graduation in August. But as of our June 3rd graduation, we have, through this program, graduated 37 students. This is an increase from last year where we graduated 25 students. And these are our students that, as you'll recall, in the fall, students that do not return to high school, we and you all have helped us participate in visiting the homes to get these students that have dropped out or are thinking about dropping out to come back to school. So this year we've so far graduated 37 students. We have had a total of 203 students enrolled, and as you know, the program has the flexible hours, so we have a lot of our students that are working students or our parents, and they have the opportunity to come early in the morning at 7 o'clock, spend the 4 hours with us, midday, or they can come in the evenings. We're open until 8 o'clock at night. So over 203 students enrolled, and of our students there, they've earned over 366 credits. And these are credits that they would not have earned. We have students enrolled this summer and hope to bring more to graduation in August.
Thank you.
The success of our graduation walk, being able to capture those students that we lost and affording them an opportunity to achieve the credit hours to obtain their high school diploma. It's a fantastic program.
Thank you.
Okay, I will now entertain a motion to approve the proposed 2017-2019 optional flexible day school program as presented by the administration.
Madam President, I'm quite familiar with several surrounding districts who have this type of program for our students, so I'm happy to make a motion, and I move that the Board of Trustees approve the proposed 2017-2018 optional flexible school day program as presented by the administration. And thank you, Dr. Lupita.
Second.
Awesome.
It has been moved by Rhonda Newhouse and seconded by Chris Bell that we approve the 2017-2018 optional flexible school day program. Any discussion?
I would just like to say, you know, when I was going through a rough patch in my high school, a program like this helped me, so I know the value of it. So we want to continue things like this, make it even more robust.
Basically, last year, we had a chance to do the graduate walk with Dr. Watson, and just see some of the parents and the emotion from the parents and the students when you actually knock on the door and actually invite them back to school. I'll share a story about one of the young men last year that we visited his home. I think his brother just had passed away or something, and they happened on that particular day. If you don't
Well, it's
mind.
actually a few stories. I'm not sure which one that one is. You caught me off guard. But there was a student that we went to go visit last year, and his mom was begging him to go back to school. I think he had a sibling that had been killed or something, and he just wasn't wanting to fit to go back. And one of the community members, Dr. Wilkerson, Glenn, and yourself and some other board members, we talked with him and talked with his mom, and you know, he was still saying no, but at the end of the day, when we went back to the school to drop everybody off, he was standing there at the door getting registered for his class. And so those are the types of stories which makes all of what we do of the graduation walks that much more meaningful when the kids actually come back and they're actually able to receive their high school diploma. I mean, it changes their life. And for this parent, she really wanted her child back, and so it was a great experience.
Thank you, Dr. Watson.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. Our next item is the public hearing for the 2017-2018 district-wide school waivers. At this time, I would like to again recognize our Chief of School Leadership and Student Support Services, Dr. Lupita Hinojosa.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen, and members of the board. Tonight, we bring to you our proposed 2017-2018 district-wide school waivers. And these are waivers that we bring every year to renew. These waivers are not covered as part of our District of Innovation. And these waivers will provide us the flexibility as a district to continue to meet state statutes and policies while providing high-quality education to our students. These waivers were presented to, and I would say first, developed by our ACE committee, and then voted and approved by the ACE committee. And so before you, you have 7 waivers: the reoccurrence of early release days, that is for half a day, and we will be having 2 of those this year. Services for our homebound students for remote instruction. The dual credit alternative attendance program. This is for our early college. As you know, early college has a different calendar than what we have. It will allow us to synchronize with North Harris. A modified schedule during the state assessments for our high school students. Timeline to provide accelerated instruction for our students in 5th grade and 8th grade that may have not passed or met standards on their STAR assessment. The foreign exchange students to limit to no more than 5 per high school. And then the last renewal that we are asking for is the pregnancy-related services for on-campus compensatory education for home instruction. And this is for our teen mothers that may need to stay at home. And so we are once again asking for the board to approve the renewal of the 7 district-wide waivers.
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. Ms. Hill, do we have anyone registered to speak to this agenda item under public hearing?
No, Madam President, we do not.
As there are no identified speakers, let us continue with tonight's agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the proposed 2017-2018 district-wide school waivers as presented by the administration.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the proposed 2017-2018 district-wide waiver as presented by the administration.
It has been moved by Donald Davis and seconded by Jana Gonzalez that we approve the 2017-2018 district-wide school waivers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. For our next item, I would like to recognize our Chief Communications Officer, Tiffany Dunn Oldfield.
Good evening, Dr. Jensen, Dr. Watson, and members of the board. Tonight I'm going to be presenting, as you know, we have 2 district-wide organizational surveys. One we presented earlier in the year, which was our employee engagement survey. And tonight I'm going to be presenting our school quality survey. I do want to have the caveat is that this report, except for a couple of slides that I've added in to show how we're using the results, comes from our provider K-12 Insight, who does our surveys. They weren't able to be with us tonight, so if there's any questions that I'm not able to answer, I can reach out to K-12 Insight and get those more technical answers for you. But I am very pleased to present the results, and my objective is to present the things that we were happy about in the results and those things that as a administration that we want to work on. So really quickly, I just want to remind everybody of what our school quality survey. So our employee engagement survey, we look at our employees and how they feel connected to the organization and how we support them in that engagement quality. In the school quality survey, we're actually looking at a broader stakeholder group. We're looking at 3 stakeholder groups and their perceptions of school quality across the district. So we are looking at our staff, but only our campus-based staff participate in the school quality survey. We're also looking at our parents, and we're looking at our secondary students. And really quickly, I just want to go over the 5 dimensions that you see here that K-12 Insights use it in their school quality survey. And these really get at those things, those elements that we all think about when we think about a quality school. So when you look at academic preparation or academic support, those are the things like, we have high learning standards. We set high expectations. Students are challenged. Teachers give timely feedback. And things like lessons relate to real life. Those are all those things and the questions in the part of the survey that get at that academic support and how we view strong schools in that area. We also have here is the student support. So that gets at, is there a counselor that a student can go to? Do they feel supported on their campus? Are there the resources needed for them? Do we tolerate bullying? Things like that are included in that area.
And then in school leadership, you can see things like, the administrators on the campus make decisions on what's the best interest of students. They are courteous to parents, and they are also responsive to parents, or other things that look at in that section. Family involvement, is the school welcoming to family? Do we take family input and actually connect it to student learning? And then the last one, safety and behavior. Things like we're asking our stakeholder groups, do they feel that our schools are safe? Do staff members and students treat each other with respect? And so these 5 elements have been shown in research, is that people in general connect these to high-quality schools, or the way we look at these dimensions, we connect to high-quality schools. So that's what the survey tonight's going to look at, again, for campus-based staff, parents, and secondary students. Okay? So just a little bit about the survey. We administered it in the beginning of April 4th through the 14th. We always send out an email to all the participants from Dr. Watson. He sends out before the survey, just letting them know that K-12 Insight, an external vendor, will be sending the survey to them. We send 1 invite email and then 2 reminders. We also post it up prominently on social media, and we also have an incentive program for our principals to encourage participation too as well. So this is one of my slides here, is a timeline to understand how we use the survey data and why it's so important to us, not just to have a survey that we place on the bookshelf or to have a survey that we place in our office, but to actually use the survey. So you can see here when the survey was conducted, which I just mentioned, we got our very high-level results back at the beginning of May. K-12 Insights did a webinar with the cabinet. We really got to look at our high-level district results and talk about those results. But we also use K-12 Insight, and we invite them to our principals meeting. Their head researcher comes and actually walks the principal. Each principal gets their campus results and walks them through a process where they look at items and they dissect their data, and they actually start to think about action plans, as well as ways that they can take the data back to their leadership on their campus and look at it too as well. And that's the high-level report. We start to get our full reports in May, and we start to send those full reports out. That's the high-level campus report, but it's also all the qualitative details that are part of the report. We send those out to the campuses. One by one, I send an individual email to every school leader with a copy to our assistant soups with their individual reports, so they can start to dive deep into that. We start off our communications, because one of the parts, and we will talk about participation, we were a little disappointed with some of our participation levels this year round. Second year is often harder because of the marketing that goes, that first year kind of everybody wants to participate. We'll talk about that, but one of the really important parts in K-12 reminds us is participation, is people want to see you use the data. And as we use it and they see that we really use this data, we hope to get better participation rates as well. So here I am tonight presenting the results to you, but upcoming in August, actually school leadership will be coming back and bringing some assistant soups and principals to talk with you about how they're using their campus improvement plans too as well. And this is kind of what's going to be going over the summer, is that deep reflection and kind of how they can use this in their campus improvement plans. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about, also in your yellow folder, I hope you saw I have 3 slick infographics that are in there. This year we are actually preparing an infographic for every campus within the district, because part of data can be overwhelming. And so as our principals prepare for the beginning of the school year, how they can have coffee talks with parents and actually use the infographic as an easy way to kind of talk about the data and talk about things that they can work on jointly with our parents to improve the school quality or perceptions of school quality. Okay, so here's the information on participation. So we were pretty flat, pretty equal on the side of students, not on the side of staff and parents. Where we saw a drop this year was in students. You can see here we had little less than half of the number of students that participated this year in the survey. We did the survey later in the year this year, Last year, we did it right at the beginning, coming back from our winter holiday in January, and we're going to go back to doing in the January timeframe. There's a lot going on in the spring in our campuses, and so we're going to go back to the January timeline, and we're really committed to getting those student participation levels back up. But overall, pretty flat, which is good according to K-12 Insight, considering that the first year that you launch a survey, you always get higher participation levels, and then you've got to continue to fight for that each and every year. Okay. So, in overall quality, we have some good messages here that I'd like to highlight. So, when we look at overall quality, particularly from parents here, we're going to look at the excellent and good and year over year. The beauty, too, of our partner K-12 Insight is they're providing us year-over-year data. You know, we launched this at the beginning of our strategic plan so we can see our progress and are committed to doing this survey all 5 years of our strategic plan. So when you look at that parent perspective on how would you rate the overall quality of your school, and that takes in those 5 dimensions, we see a 9 percentage point increase from our parents year over year with the survey. Okay. When you look at staff, we're only getting from that excellent and good, we're only getting a 1 percentage point. And then with the students, we're seeing a drop, but again, the lower participation rate. I don't want to put too much weight on the students on the survey. So if you go to the next page here, when you look at the dimension scores, and we're looking here at those big 5 buckets, those dimensions of academic support, student support, school leadership, safety, as well as family and community engagement, you're seeing we're essentially flat year over year for staff and students. But we have some really nice growth, and growth that K-12 has been impressed with our parents. When you look at academic support, you're seeing a 5 percentage point increase for parents from year over year. You're seeing a 3 percentage point increase in student support, 6% in school leadership, 7% on the next page in family involvement year over year, and a 7% point increase on safety and behavior as well, from our parents' perspective. Okay. Parents are always more critical and score harder than actually your staff does, because a lot of the questions are really kind of rating yourself from a staff perspective. And so on the next slide, right here, I did those two. The next slide here, what I want to do is that you have in your folder, which is the entire report, that breaks down each stakeholder group and all the details provided there per question you can look at and see how we did per question. And all of that's the report that actually has the red that says your full report. It is provided in your folder. What I'm going to do is walk through the parent information. And so walk through, because that's a really hard one for K-12 Insight. And as we look at school quality and we think about our community's perception, we tend to grade ourselves a little more generously, so our staff grades themselves a little more generously. So what I did, instead of doing all the stakeholder groups, I want us to focus on the parents for this section. Then we'll look at high and low indicators across all stakeholder groups. So really quickly, this will give you a breakdown per questions per dimension. And I'll go through fairly quickly. If I'm going too fast, just slow me down. So on academic support, we have 4 to 6 point gains on the first 5 questions that are part of academic support. And one that I want to highlight in particular is the last one. We have 11-point gain on our parents' perceptions that teachers successfully show students how lessons relate to life outside of school. So that's a great improvement, but we would like to see a higher percentage than 63% of our parents saying that. So one of the things is to look at gains year over year, and of course to also set some goals where we want these indicators to be as well. So when you look at student support comparison year over year, we have small gains on most questions. You can see some 1s, 2, 3, and 4 gains, but we have a 7-point gain on students at the school are treated fairly regardless of their race, culture, religion, sexual orientation, gender, or disabilities. On the next page, school leadership, we have 5 to 8 point gains on every question in this section, with an 8-point gain on school-based administrators. Principals and assistant principals are courteous when I have a concern. It's a nice gain to have year over year from our parents. Family involvement, we have 5 to 8-point gains on every question under family involvement, with 8-point gains in 2 areas. Staff members and families treat each other with respect, and the school uses family input to improve instruction. Again, these are year-over-year gains, but definitely areas that we want to see. Even with our gains, we want to see and we want to grow on those. Okay. Safety and behavior. This is one that when we look at parents, I want to pause on this slide a little bit. We have at least a 4-point gain on every question, but K-12 Insights, one of their biggest highlights was to come back and say from a parent perception, you know, we got a 12-point gain. It was our highest gain year over year on this school is safe. That simple question to our parents, this is a significant gain year over year and one that K-12 highlighted in their presentation to us. So these next slides, and this part is also included in your full report. A really nice thing that K-12 does is they look at your highest ranking indicators by stakeholder group. In the asterisk, the little items that are asterisk are items that were not in our highest ranking indicators. So when you look here, you have now, we've added to our highest ranking indicators of parents, this school is safe, and that school administrators are courteous. Those were not in our highest ranking indicators last year. And then in bold is an item that is seen across as a highest ranking indicator across all 3 stakeholder groups. In staff, you can see here, one bolded item, again, the same one we just saw, is for staff. Families are informed about school-sponsored activities, such as tutoring, and that was one of our high-ranking indicators. There's no new items under staff. Students, you can see the same one that we just mentioned, is a really strong point where we rank high across all stakeholder groups. Is this, I feel informed, I feel like I received the information that I need. Our lowest ranking indicators, and this is one that I want to pause on, because as I was reading our results, you see 2 items here in asterisk that didn't appear on our lowest ranking indicators from parents last year, but they are on our lowest ranking indicators this year. But I do want to pause on this because, not that I like that it's here, but I do like it in some ways, because when you say our parents are saying students are challenged by their coursework, teachers set high expectations. It's that it's our community saying that they want high expectations. They want us to challenge their students. So where we scored low here is also an opportunity for us, because our parents are saying they really want us to challenge and to set high expectations for our students, and that we didn't score as well as we would have liked here. It came out, it wasn't on ours, but that's something for us for a challenge and an opportunity for next year. And lowest ranking from staff, you can see here, we did have one item that didn't appear on the lowest ranking, which this school is safe, which is interesting, and the fact that our parents scored us higher on that one, but it was a small change, and you can see it's the lowest item on our lowest ranking indicator too as well. So, did I go this way? I think I missed one here. So students, and you can see there's no new ones here for students, very close to what was last year for students on this one. And then lastly, I will turn to our key insights here, and I know you all can read them. They're part of the larger report, but the one bullet at the top, the 73% of our parents gave favorable ratings, excellent or good for overall quality, which is a 9 percentage point increase year over year. But again, you know, we're working on how we do each year. We'd like to see an increase because we want to be higher than 73%. And I know there's lots more data in here, as well as in the full report, those infographics and what the schools are receiving. We're really pushing those out so that they can share, talk through the data. We are encouraging our schools not to make a laundry list of items, but to choose 2 or 3 items that they really want to work on for next year. And as each of our campuses work on a few items, we're hoping to continue to see, again, some nice lift year over year. But this is a good indicator of how we're doing on the strategic plan. And if you have any questions, I will try to answer them, and if I can, again, I'll take them back to K-12 Insight.
I have a comment and a question. So this is really good data, and to see the increases, especially from the parents, is encouraging. And I like how you shared that the data, it should be a living document, and that our campuses are incorporating it into their campus improvement plans and putting strategic action plans in place. Our district overall Every Child 2020 strategic action plan, is it an opportunity for us to utilize some of this data to make adjustments in that plan as well?
I definitely think there's great insight to take from, but I'll let Dr. Watson answer.
Absolutely. And so one of the things we've been doing as cabinet is we've been going back really looking at the plan and saying, where are we? What are some things that, for example, the boundary and the bond took a lot of time. That wasn't in our 5-year plan, and so there were some areas that we stopped on to get those going, but we needed the bond and the boundaries to move the plan forward. And so, yes, we are looking at this data. K-12 Insight provided an activity that principals did, and at Cabinet this week, we talked about Cabinet next week are going to be going through the same exercise, really highlighting which ones of these. For us, setting high expectations for students seems like that's very easy for us to do, is to really use the rules and procedures and policies that we have to really make sure we're challenging. And so we're going to come up with 3 action items out of the data that correspond with our 5-year plan that's going to cause us to really make this living and to move it forward and really to set some goals. And so I think in August, when we get back together as a board, it'd be nice for us to really sit down and say which 3 areas, the board has already decided literacy, and literacy is the main focus, but also attendance. Well, if kids are not challenged by their work, that could be a reason why they're not coming to school. And so we're going to really look at those and get your feedback so we can have 3 items that we all track throughout the course of next year. And then when Tiffany or K-12 presents the data next year, we hope to see a gain in that area.
Okay, so your response answered my second question. And I really like infographic.
Infographics,
okay,
yes.
I'm going to steal that terminology. Right now I'm calling my strategic plan one-page handout. So
we like to think everybody goes through a full report, but those are really helpful.
This hits to highlight the
Absolutely.
bullet points, and is always a great talking point to spark a conversation.
Absolutely.
And so I really liked it. Great job.
The only thing I would ask in addition is to know how many respondents in each students, parents, staff were providing information at each school. I was just looking at the longer report, and I see that you go by every single question in the survey, but it doesn't have school-by-school data.
So we have school-by-school data. Last year we presented at the district level, but we can provide school-by-school data to you as well. We have it. We make a binder that is this large.
I don't want a binder. Can I have a searchable document? Okay.
Yeah. We also, and I've asked, I'm having an Excel file prepared that we will have year over year for the 5 dimensions per school, and we can put the participant level rates there. That'll be a quick glance, and we're working. As I look at data, I'm always thinking, I'd like it in this view, and I think that might be helpful, and we'll definitely provide that. It may take us a week to get that pulled together, but I think it'll give you a nice view.
With the low participation rate of the parents responding, that's what I'm concerned about, is that I don't want to put too much credence if just 2 parents at a school provided all the data points.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things in K-12 really drove this home when they do almost an hour and a half, 2-hour presentation with the principals. One of the really nice things is those schools that we saw year-over-year growth in participation, they actually saw year-over-year growth on their indicators, which is really nice because you're getting more participants, but you're also getting a better view of your stakeholders. But in general, the schools that saw year-over-year growth also saw better, ratings too as well, which is a real positive in that sense. But we do, and one of the things with the principals, if they didn't have the strong participation rates, and we had some schools, I do want to acknowledge, we have some schools that just knock it out of the park with their parents. They're having signs when the parents are picking up in the cars. Mike Walker at Burchett is just an example of someone that does a phenomenal job, but we have lots and lots of principals
that do that, and I'd like to send you just a little list of those superstars so that you can know and acknowledge the work that they do to get their staff and their parents highly engaged in this process. And we have some schools, and the parents are anxious to see the results, but it's a really good point where they have low participation rates. We actually ask them as an action item to have a plan to increase their participation rates next year is one of the action items related to the survey.
Let me follow up. You mentioned earlier not wanting to give a lot of weight to the students. Of course, I see the numbers went down, but I also see with the students that they give the least amount of excellence, more amounts of poor. So can we talk maybe how we can sort of re-engage the students this time around next year?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the timing of the year is going to be better. We're going to move it back up to January, and we have some really clear plans to support our schools a little better. Now, just as to note, K-12 does this survey across many school districts across the U.S. Your students are always your most critical raters, always lower than parents and definitely lower than staff. So you always have staff are the most generous in their ratings, then come parents, and students always across all of the surveys at K-12, they're always the most critical. They're always the most critical. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn-Oldfield. For our next item, I would like to recognize our Chief Financial Officer, Ann Westbrooks.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. Come back on here. The first item is the Student Success Initiative and Accelerated Instruction. It's a small budget that has to be approved separately from the big budget, but it is a part of the 2017-2018 maintenance and operations budget. And so what this is it's a requirement that came out of, I believe, the 83rd legislative session that requires the district to set funds aside to provide interventions for students who have not passed the first administration of the end of course exam. So we're asking the board to please approve a set-aside amount of $75,000 using the state compensatory education funds as a part of our maintenance and operations budget to support those students who need that additional intervention.
Thank you, Ms. Westbrooks.
Yes, ma'am.
I will now entertain a motion to adopt the 2017-2018 Spring Independent School District Budget for Student Success Initiative and Accelerated Instruction as presented by the administration.
I move that the Board of Trustees adopt the 2017-2018 Spring Independent School District Budget for Student Success Initiative and Accelerated Instruction, as presented by the administration.
Second.
It has been moved by Justine Durant and seconded by Chris Bell. I'm sorry, Chris.
Justine Christine.
To approve the 2017-2018 Spring Independent School District Budget for Student Success Initiative. Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead. Ms. Westbrooks,
Yes, ma'am.
approximately how many students are we considering or thinking about or we've had in the past?
Okay. I'd like to ask Dr. Hinojosa to help me with that question. Thank you.
So, Ms. Newhouse, I don't have the numbers now before me. We do have, for example, right now, our students enrolled in EOC prep courses during summer school because we will have our next administration for them. So immediately after the results come back, we identify who the students are and we get them into either the after-school tutorial program or remediation during the day, and in this case, they've all signed up for summer school so that they can prepare and retest this summer. But I can certainly get you the numbers.
So we are planning to work with them during the summer?
They are in class as we speak.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask a question around the $75,000. Is that's the same amount we did last year? Is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Is that
Not in and of itself, no. There's actually a much larger amount that is for interventions and for the servicing of our at-risk students. We put about $385,000 for just tutorials alone, but that's to help students before they take the test, as well as those who don't pass it the first time around.
That's why I was kind of concerned about the numbers that we were accommodating, that
Yeah.
this amount may be low.
This is just a minimum requirement that the state, this is the way the state wants to make sure that we are addressing, that any district is addressing the students that have failed, but it is a very small minimum funds that we actually spend on our students for this preparation, either for the retesting, but most importantly, as Ms. Westbrook pointed out, we start our support for them, either the tutorials or additional materials, resources, prep material, and online services for them during the year. We don't want to wait till summer, because then it may be too late for some of the students.
Exactly, exactly. So even with this small amount, we're not neglecting any students.
We are not neglecting any students. They are, and in what we've done for summer school is all three comprehensive high schools are offering the credit recovery and the end of course prep courses. Unlike what we do in elementary and middle school, we consolidate summer school. We want to make it as easy as possible for our high school students, so all three comprehensive schools are offering, plus we provide transportation for the students. They just need to get up, get on the bus, and come to school.
Great. Thank you.
All right, those in favor of this motion, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. Our next item is the 2016-2017 third budget review. Please continue, Ms. Westbrook.
Yes, ma'am. And the third budget review represents all of the changes that have occurred to the budget since the second budget review that was brought to you all back in February. So what I like to do is go through each fund type and discuss the highlighted changes in both revenues and expenditures, and just what we're anticipating the fund balance to be in each of those funds. So beginning with the general fund, there's an anticipated increase of about $1.7 million, and that is made up of a net increase of I'm sorry, we're not together. Find it. My apologies. Page 34. Yes. Okay. The increase in the general funds is made up of a net increase in the property tax collections of about $2.7 million, offset by a net decrease in state revenues of about $2.5 million, and also a TRS on behalf increase of $1 million. On the expenditure side, there's an anticipated increase of $4.7 million, which is largely made up of the purchase of the new instructional facility, which is $3.6 million, and then that offsetting expenditure side for TRS on behalf of $1 million. With the changes in revenues and expenditures, we're looking at a fund balance of about $96.5 million in the general fund. In the Child Nutrition Fund, there's an increase in revenues of $650,000 and an anticipated increase in expenditures of just over $1 million, primarily due to the increased food cost as compared to the beginning budget. That leaves us with the fund balance in Child Nutrition of $1.8 million. On the Debt Service Fund, we had a net increase in revenues of $558,000, which was an increase in our property tax collection, offset by a net decrease in our state revenue anticipated in the debt fund. There was also an increase in expenditures of $1.7 million, which was the result of the reclassification of an expenditure related to the 2016 bond refunding. With all the changes in the debt service fund, we're anticipating an ending fund balance in debt service of $54.3 million. In the special revenue funds, there was a decrease in both revenues and expenditures of $5.7 million, and that was an adjustment that had to do with the roll forward funds from the prior year, just an adjustment, not an actual loss of any funds. And with those changes, we're looking at a special revenue balance of just over $1 million. In the capital projects funds, there's an increase of $568,000 in revenues that is associated with interest income received on the bond proceeds, and then a net increase of $226 million as we budget for the first round of the bond projects. The Manning table is the last item, and there's an increase of 69.5 positions on the Manning table, 60 of which are the classified positions for our additional bus drivers. And then there was a net increase of 9.5 positions in the teacher and other professional category.
Repeat those numbers. They're not the same numbers we have in our sheet on the Manning table.
This is actually an increase from Thursday.
I believe you may have gotten an old version in the copy that was printed here, but what was given to you all on Thursday night is the 69.5.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's correct.
Just like to mention that sometimes people say, well, if you got over $1 million in child nutrition, why aren't you spending it on such and such and such? That we have targeted funds because you have $1 million in child nutrition and you don't get to go spend it on soccer uniforms or something else.
Specific. Those funds are actually considered restricted funds that are specific to the child nutrition fund. Yes,
so that's even more targeted than targeted funds,
that's
right?
Exactly right. Yes.
Targeted and restricted. Okay. I know that we've talked about attendance, that it's hurt our income.
Yes.
And it's going to be a topic that we're visiting all next year. And the board has selected that.
Can you speak to TRS on behalf?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. We hear a whole lot about affordable care insurance going on in Washington, but talk about how it impacts us.
TRS on behalf actually does not have an impact on the district. It's an accounting entry that is the state's contribution to the teacher retirement plan. And so our liability is calculated as our portion in relation to the state's total TRS liability.
Okay, so that's retirement, and I guess I'm thinking about the health care.
Yes, the health care cost is a little different than the TRS on behalf. TRS on behalf is the actual, we as employees that are in the teacher's retirement system pay a certain portion and then the state pays a certain portion. Yes. Our cost with the medical plan remained fairly consistent because our contribution to the medical plan hasn't changed. But the cost that the state is seeing with the medical plan is what's causing the increase in the medical premiums that's being pushed on to the employees, thus the increase in the raise amount to help offset that increase.
Thank you, Ms. Westbrooks.
Yes, ma'am.
I will now entertain a motion to approve the 2016-2017 third budget review as presented by the administration.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the 2016-2017 third budget review as presented by the administration.
Second.
It has been moved by Rhonda Newhouse and seconded by Justine Durant that the board approve the 2016-2017 third budget review. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. Our next item is the request for qualifications, RFQ.
Move on. Her team worked tirelessly and hard since on our budget, and you have provided us all the information that we needed, to make governing informed.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any of your team
I
here?
do, and I had to look really quickly. I see Alicia Kennedy, our budget manager, is still here tonight, and I was teasing that she'll get to sleep tonight, probably for the first time in several months. So if Alicia, if you could wave a little bit so everyone knows who you are. Yes, it is a lot of hard work, and we have another one of our budget team members who isn't here tonight, but it's a team effort, so thank you very much for that.
Well, we did notice that during the graduation ceremonies, and we were shaking hundreds of hands and making speeches and feeling sorry for us. So you had a stack of paper, I think a foot high, that you were working on.
In
So,
between
oh my
graduations.
gosh, tremendous effort. Thank you.
Never a dull moment.
All right. Let's go on to the next item, request for qualifications, RFQ number 17-019, architectural professional services. Please continue, Ms. Westbrook.
Yes, ma'am. The request for qualifications was created to create a qualified pool of architectural firms to have the potential to be selected through the additional review processes for the assignment of selected construction projects as were laid out and determined in the 2016 bond. An interview committee as well as a selection committee was brought together to do interviews, conduct interviews, and a review and analysis of the architect firms who responded to the request for qualifications. And here tonight, we're recommending that the board approve the group of recommended architectural firms as laid out in the documents, which includes a vendor phase 1 pool of architects as well as a vendor phase 2 pool of architects.
Thank you, Ms. Westbrook.
Yes, ma'am.
I will now entertain a motion to approve the request for qualifications. Yep. We're going to get to discussion.
Okay, we'll get to discussion.
Yeah, we discussed before we vote. A motion to approve the request for qualifications, RFQ number 17-019, architectural professional services. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the pool of firms selected to be assigned potential contracts for the purchase and implementation of architectural professional services as presented by the administration.
Is there a second? Well, we're not going to approve anybody tonight, then, if there's not a second. We can always modify this motion.
I'd like to modify the motion.
All right. Mr. Bell, I think I'm going to have to hand this on down to him. Oh, he has it? Okay. Certainly.
Do we have to have a second, then we can modify during discussion? Just help me out on this. Or are we going to try to modify it now? You know, we never got a second on the original motion. Help me out on raw rules of order. If we never got a second on the original, every time we want to modify, I can modify something. Never got a second on the original. Did it die or what? If it died, I guess if no one seconded it, I guess we can go back and then modify the motion, right?
Are we seeking to modify the motion, or are we seeking to make a different motion that would be preliminary to the final motion?
Probably a different motion.
I will entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Trustees modify the recommendation of the administration to add the following vendors: pool of qualified architects, Clay Cove Associates Architects, 3 plus RDC, 3P Writing.
What is it again? You don't mind?
Lake Home Associates Architects, and AT3 plus RDC, 3P Writing. That's the way it's listed on the
Trying to look
the information.
at it.
Second it. It has been moved by Trustee Bell and seconded by Trustee Durant that the Board of Trustees modify the recommendation by the administration to add the following vendors to the pool of qualified architects. You said Placo and AT3 plus RDC?
That's correct.
All right, is there a discussion?
Like, clarification, why modified?
We had discussion at the work session the other night, and just point of clarification, I didn't see one of the vendors even listed on the report, DLR Fluger. That's one of the things I raised my hand about earlier. So that's just a discussion point that they're not on the list that was presented to us. At least I don't see them. We had sort of a robust discussion the other night about the fact that we've got not so much these two. I'm even hesitant to include the names, but our understanding is we had to do that, was that they met the scoring of at least 60, where they didn't, as far as I guess the interview process, what they didn't score as high there, but they met the other scores at least 60, so that puts them in that pool with the other ones. That was my contention. We had a discussion the other night, and I think the attorney mentioned that we try to exclude instead of include. And, I think we need to include instead of exclude. We can certainly exclude numbers for various reasons, and we did. We had some that didn't score as high. But, I think we talk about being inclusive. And it doesn't cost us anything. These are just going into the pool. It's nothing out of our pocket. I think they're both going to be, if approved, Phase 2 versus Phase 1. So those are some of the reasons, but we had a really robust discussion the other night about this particular topic. I don't know if anybody else wants to. I'll be happy to talk more, but if anybody else wants to make a statement.
I would like to. I feel that strongly that we have experts who are the highest ethical caliber, who have gone through designing a fair way to compare and assess potential contractors and architects. And they also were the ones who spent in the hours of examining the materials submitted and also presentations. And they recommended these two companies be omitted. So I am against modifying this.
I'd like to make a comment in that our last bond was in 2007, and it's a very tedious, long, complicated process. And I think as we function, as President Jensen mentioned earlier, as a governing oversight board, to be more engaged and less of a rubber stamp, that it would benefit us all to have a more clear understanding of the process end to end. I feel that the district brought the information to us. They shared everything with the board, and I don't have any hesitation around their abilities, trust, or the subject matter experts that we've utilized. Where I am concerned is that we as a board could stand to benefit from a more informed process, and then we could make decisions more cohesively than what we're experiencing if we understood it from end to end. And so I had asked for that process. So I really appreciate all the work, those that put in the long hours, the committee that interviewed the candidates for us for participation in our pool. But I think as a board, as we continue to try to be a governing body and not a rubber stamp, that we get more engaged and involved in the process so that once all that work is done and brought to us, we can move forward.
I have high regard for our team, no doubt about it. The years of experience, and I don't have any qualms about that. I'm always interested in the process, and certainly policy. And, one thing that I saw was that one of our highest ranking firms got a 0 in one area, an area where simply we just needed documentation. And they got a 0. Whereas the other firms, with the exception of one other that also had a 0 in that area, strive to put forth the efforts. It reminds me of when I mentioned earlier the fact that I had a little bump in the road in high school. And I worked all night, an algebra teacher, Mrs. Franklin, I'll never forget her. Worked all night on some information, thought I did a great job, brought it to class, and I guess she didn't believe I was capable of doing the work. So I failed, and I dropped out of school. My aspirations were to go to the next level and play football. I had these football aspirations, believe it or not, even based on my size, a big heart. And there was a gentleman in the classroom, another fellow student, who never came to class, never did any work, and but he was a star athlete. And I remember Miss Franklin telling me this to this day, and I guess I had some semblance of morals and ethics back then. She said, if you get a note from the coach, I'll pass you. And I didn't feel that was right. And again, I see this as sort of like that. Somebody scores a 0, but it's like they got a note from the coach.
I'm
sorry. So that's the way that I look at it. Again, I welcome anybody else's.
I'd like to address my concerns. Like I said on Thursday night, I really appreciate the committee, the group put together this and meet my 3 requirements I asked. However, my only concern is that from going forward, the board has to play a major role, because I think that we need to know the full picture of what's going on with the architects and contractors. I mean, this past weekend I did a whole lot of studying by going to the computer, and there's school boards. They got in big trouble over contractors, architects. Even some of the ones we'll consider have sanctions in other school districts, just as the Corpus Christi, Allen, and those are our top selections. My concern is that in order to be right and be the governing body, we have to be a part of the process. And maybe just one board member, 2 board members, what we have to do is be a part of this committee to see exactly what we get involved with. That's my only concern. I have no real problem with the list that's given to us, based on information that was given to us. But in the future, based on what I know now about some of the architects that we place very high, and there are violations that are noted. They're on the website.
And I would say that the 2 firms, and again, I'm hesitant to speak of specific firms, but we have to. The median was 60. These 2 firms hit the 60. Everybody else fell under. And all I'm asking is that those 2 be included in the pool.
Okay, I'd like to make a comment here. For anybody who's ever been a teacher or had a rubric that you were judged by, we were part of that process. We reviewed that rubric and said that that was an appropriate way to select the architectural firms. Now, you can't come to the bottom where people are scoring and say, whoops, this person scored highest, but they got a 0 in my 6th item here, so I'm going to rethink this and decide that they shouldn't get as good a grade as they got. You wouldn't do that as a teacher, and certainly you wouldn't do it professionally. That if you decide ahead of time that this is how we're going to compare, and this is big money, this is has legal basis, that you say that these are the criteria that we're going to judge these by, and then you suddenly at the end say, well, I'm going to change my idea about this one. I don't think you go it that way. And plus, we were a part of that process. We reviewed those items in the rubric.
Well, I
agree with Dr. Jensen in that we did review that process. And this goes back to, you've got confusion when you don't have clarity and when there's not a holistic understanding of the process from end to end. Because at the time when we reviewed it, I didn't realize it was the last time we were going to see it. You know, so had we known that, you know, one of my recommendations would have been some of those categories were subjective. So I think there should have been some weighting in them. But at the time we approved it, but I didn't understand how it played out. So I think we've got confusion because we didn't have clarity on the process. That's the only thing there was a lot of discussion Thursday night. I got very agitated because I think we went down a different road when all I was asking is that when you want to do something and you want it to be supported, if you don't understand it from start to finish, then it's difficult to make a governing decision. That's all I was asking.
Okay, are we ready for a vote? All right. This motion was moved by Chris Bell and seconded by Justine Durant. Would you please raise your right hand if you support this motion? Any opposed? Then we have 4 people approving this modification and 2 people opposed to it. Our next item is the request for qualifications, RFQ.
We do have one motion that has to follow with the second motion on that list.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the pool of firms selected as modified by the Board of Trustees to be assigned potential contracts for the purchase and implementation of architectural professional services for the district.
Second.
It's been moved by Chris Bell and seconded by Don Davis that the Board of Trustees approve the pool of firms selected as modified by the Board of Trustees to be assigned potential contracts for the purchase and implementation of architectural professional services for the district. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? The vote is for approving the pool of firms selected and 2 opposed. Our next item is the request for qualifications, RFQ number 17-020, construction-related professional services. Please continue, Ms. Westbrook.
Yes, ma'am. This request for qualifications qualifies a pool of professional services providers to have the potential to be selected through additional review processes for the assignment of selected professional service projects as determined through the 2016 bond and other construction-related projects. And again, we'd like to recommend that the board approve the list of vendors that are outlined in your documentation for those construction-related professional services.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion that the board approve the pool of firms selected to be assigned potential contracts for required professional services related to construction as presented by the administration.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the pool of firms selected to be assigned potential contracts for required professional services related to construction as presented by the administration.
Second.
It has been moved by Chris Bell and seconded by Don Davis that the board approve the request for qualifications, RFQ number 17-020, construction-related professional services. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. Our next item is the consent agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve and adopt all of the items. It's a long agenda.
Yeah.
I will now entertain a motion to approve and adopt all of the items listed on the consent agenda.
I move that we approve and adopt all of the items listed on tonight's consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
It has been moved by Justine Durant, seconded by Rhonda Newhouse, that we approve all the items on the consent agenda. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. Next is the public participation portion of our meeting. Chief Hill, do we have anyone registered to speak under public participation?
Yes, Madam President, we do.
We have 5 registered speakers for tonight. Those speakers in order will be Christine Paget of 730 Miramar Ridge Lane, 77373, speaking on ELA. The second speaker, Early Learning Academy is what that acronym stands for. The daycare at high school. The second speaker will be Debbie Townsend of 2323 Cypress Tree, 77373. The third speaker of the night will be Kenneth Frills of 910 Spring Lakes. Sorry, can't quite read that. Haven, Spring Lakes Haven of 77373. Our fourth speaker will be Tracy Shiflett of 24403 Sandusky Drive, 77375. Our fifth speaker is Victoria Estrada Petaway of 1002 Klamath Lane, 77090. Before we bring our speakers forward, I'd like to give the instruction. So the instructions are, the board invites interested citizens to address the board on any subject they desire, other than allegations concerning the character or capability of any board member, staff member, citizen, or student of the district. The board provides an opportunity on the agenda for citizens to address the board, and we welcome your participation. The board will listen and will not interrupt unless the person addressing the board infringes on the guidelines as stated previously or exceeds the time limit authorized for the presentation. In this case, each of you will have 3 minutes to present. Mr. Sheffer, Jason Sheffer, will keep time, which will be displayed on the monitors. According to law, the board may not take action on any item that is not on the agenda. The board will not debate nor respond to any question during the meeting in order to research the question thoroughly before replying. The board will seriously consider the matter brought to its attention and respond appropriately. Also, according to law, it is a criminal offense for a person to obstruct, prevent, interfere with, or disrupt a lawfully called meeting through physical action or verbal utterance. Citizens are requested to supplement any oral address to the board with a written summary of their presentation and any recommendations they may wish to suggest. Thank you for your concern regarding our school district, and we will hear from you now, beginning with the first speaker, Christian Parquet. Would you come forward now to the podium?
Hi. Thank you. Again, my name is Kristen Parquet. I have a 3-year-old who has attended Winchie. This upcoming school year would have been her 3rd year. And we learned maybe 3 weeks prior to school closing, or school ending, that her school's actually going to close. So it's basically me here, and we have a handful of other parents that are here to see what we can do to save our children's school. When Kai, her name's Kai, when she started attending ELA, she was right at a year old, and she had been at in-home daycare with a lady, and there was one other baby there. So when we had to make the decision on where we were going to take her, we were very, very worried. My husband was, at that time, an educator in Spring ISD, and I worked for Child Protective Services. So naturally, the both of us were concerned first about her safety, where she was going to be in the daytime, and her education. And we're very hard on our children. She's the youngest of 3, and we're very hard on our kids, but we're consistent, and we're active parents in the learning process, and we try to provide the best for our kids. So since learning that her school is going to close, we've been to several daycares in the area, and nothing at all compares to where she is. From an educational perspective, from what we feel as, a safety perspective, but then we start to talk affordability. So when we were looking into schools that were somewhat comparable to where she is, the cost is almost 2.5 times as much, which is completely ridiculous. But one of our parents at the school put together something for us to try to come and speak to you guys. So basically our question to you guys is, what can we do to help save our children's school? I know the location where it is at Winchie. It's only in a corner of the building, and I don't really see a whole lot more that could be done with that particular space without somewhat of an overhaul, because I call it a little people space. So to me, you guys would spend more money trying to revamp it than just to offer it to the kids, because our kids there have developed community with their friends, and they're already out for summer because they're on spring ISD schedule. And she's 3, and she's still asking me every day, Mommy, is today school day? But at this point, Mommy has nowhere to take her for the next school year, and we're worried. We're concerned about our kids. So my job as Mommy is to advocate and to ask you guys to give us more time, at least another school year, to get things done. But I know there are teachers there that have been there for years, some since it's open, and they're looking, where are we going to go? And I just don't think it's fair. But thanks for hearing me.
Thank you.
And this time, the second speaker is Debbie Townsend. Dr. Watson, trustees and superintendent's cabinet, I thank you for the chance to speak to you. I'd like to talk about the decision to close the One-Sheet ELA. In my opinion, closing this facility is a big mistake. This facility has been serving our teachers, teen moms, since at least the early 90s, not 10 years. Many of our district teachers depend on the One-Sheet ELA, quality daycare, and teaching of the most precious things in their lives, their own children. During my 30-plus years of volunteering at Spring ISD, I've known hundreds of teachers that have been lucky enough to be able to put their kids at the One-Sheet ELA, a facility that has exactly the same work schedule as their own. The waiting list for an available open spot is often 1 or 2 years. The quality of care, not to mention the peace of mind and convenience, is so high that teachers are so thrilled to just get on the list that they're willing to wait as long as they have to. We're always talking about wanting to hire and keep quality teachers in Spring ISD. Teachers have very few perks. Having an ELA where teachers know without a doubt that their kids will not only be well taken care of and loved, but they will also be taught quality preschool lessons is a very big perk. The loss of the One-Sheet ELA has badly impacted our teachers. I personally know of one teacher, a highly successful teacher, who will not be returning in 17-18 totally because she no longer has a place of such high standards to take her 2 precious daughters. Her 4-year-old is reading. Her 2-year-old knows her colors, her shapes, and is counting. Now, I know from the different committees I've been on lately that most of our kids coming into pre-K don't know that. They barely write their names. They don't know their shapes and colors, and they're certainly not reading. Yes, I understand that there might be a few open spots at the Westville facility. That in no way makes up for the loss of the One-Sheet facility. Please reconsider the decision to close the One-Sheet ELA. At minimum, I urge you to poll the teachers to see how the closing of this facility is affecting their lives. Having the One-Sheet ELA has been a long-standing tradition, at least a 23-year tradition that I know of. Why are we fixing something that's not broken? And I'm sorry, I'm out of ink, so I only had one handwritten copy. We'll take.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kenneth Rails.
Good evening, Dr. Jensen, Dr. Watson, the board, and the chief of staff. I come once again talking about Colton, which is my son that attends that academy. In the bond meeting, I spoke highly and was concerned about early childhood learning. Like many of the parents before me, they've said what their kids know. Let me tell you what Colton knows. Colton knows from A to Z how to pronounce every sound, a couple of sight words, how to count to 30. He knows his friends, all of his friends there. One of the things that I learned, because I was not involved in picking him up and dropping him off due to work, I noticed when I did walk in there, the janitor there would come, and Colton would take out running to that janitor. Colton, tell me about your day, and Colton would start telling him. Colton was at Kids Are Kids, and being at Kids Are Kids, Colton came home with nothing. Colton comes home with something that he can learn. Miss Erica and Miss Edith, Miss Daphne, that's there, Colton still says in the morning, I'm ready to go to school. I know not working, but volunteering in a school, I see DRA scores. Also know that literacy is a big, big problem in this district. And if we can tackle it at that level, and the fight that I fought standing out there in the rain to pass a bond for early childhood learning, and to have ELA close, it's only for a couple of parents, but most importantly, it's for your staff. And if you take care of your staff as a business owner, if I take care of my employees, they'll take care of me. Most of these kids are GT kids. I know about 8 of them that are GT kids within the district or has graduated already. So I highly recommend you guys reconsider on closing ELA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tracy Shiflett.
Hello, good evening. My name is Tracy Shiflett. I've worked at ISD at Spring High School for 4 years under Dr. Watson as well when he was elected. My son has gone to Early Learning Academy for 3 years. He started in the 1s and he is now in the 3s program, as well as my daughter was supposed to start there in the fall. Unfortunately, when we got the news that the school was closing, me as well as everyone else was very saddened about the news. And when we heard about this opportunity to come speak to you guys, we obviously jumped at that opportunity. And so that is why we're here this afternoon or tonight. And we'd like for you to please look at the agenda and the things that we're trying to bring to you guys and hopefully change your mind or change something about this to keep this school open for us, because it is a place of warmth. And also, it brings community to the district as well as money because we're paying for it, and just a lot of awareness. I was extremely excited. My son's extremely excited to go to this school, and anyone that speaks with me, I'm very happy to tell them about the Wenatchee ELA as well as the community. I speak with them about that. I've brought on multiple parents to the school as well to bring their children because I think it is such a good location, as well as teachers. And my student has learned so much, as well as the other people are saying, his numbers and colors, how to write his name at only 3 years old. And just every day when he would come home, he would bring things with him, as well as, you know, tell me what he learned that day and new things. And so I was very disappointed when it was going to be closing, and I've been looking for new daycares as well in the locations around my house and even by the schools, and I just don't see anything up to par as what we had at Wenatchee ELA. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And our fifth speaker of the evening is Victoria Estrada Pedway. Okay, we'll wait just a moment.
Hello, my name is Victoria Estrada Pedway. Sorry, I was riding up here. Had to pick up my kids. Thank you for hearing me today, and I apologize for being tardy. So, I'm here to speak about the ELA program, which I feel is it's such a valuable asset for our community. As an educator, as a parent, as a single mother, it's very difficult to find affordable health care for our children. And as we go to school every day, the first thing we're taught as educators is to provide a safe and healthy learning environment for our students. Because without that, they're not ready to learn. And until we do that, we can't open up their minds for us to be effective in teaching them. And as I go to work every day, as a single mom, it's very difficult to worry about my own children being cared for and being safe and being taught. Sorry, I don't know if any of y'all have small children or grandchildren, but the cost of getting our young students educated and being ready for the next step it's a lot of money. The average rate, if you want your child to be well taken care of, is $250. And as an educator, that's a lot of money a month to worry about our young students. And after teaching them years of kindergarten, you know, they expect so much of our really young students. You have to know all your letters. You have to be able to count to 100. You have to have a DRA level of a 4. You have to know all your letter sounds to be prepared for first grade. And what we find as kindergarten teachers is that those students who do not have education before they come, if they're not in preschool, if they're only kept at home by a parent, that those are the ones that are finding it very hard and struggle their first year or so in school. And those are the children who get left behind. And we don't find out till later how far behind they actually are. And whether in your business or in the education system, we push community and the importance of community. And by shutting down the ELA program, what we're saying is, sorry parents and sorry to those students, saying that they're not of value to us until they've entered our education system. And by then, some of it, it's very hard for them to find their place in our schools and to be valued. So I'm here pleading for not only my children, but for other parents. Because even though you don't service a large amount of people with the program, what you do for us is so important, and it's so necessary for us to be able to go to work, not only as educators, but as parents, and to be functioning humans in our society. And it's just an asset that I couldn't have asked for, because it's rough trying to provide for your children and to know that they're taken care of, and the ELA program did that. The teachers are very passionate about their students. They made sure that we knew that they were safe and they were loved. The high school students that worked with our children did an amazing job. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry.
We are not allowed to respond to anything that is not on the published agenda. I just want to assure everyone that we certainly listen to you and will think about what you said and discuss implications. Thank you for coming and participating. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
The Board of Trustees will now recess this open session and convene in a closed meeting in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.071, for the purpose of a private consultation with the Board's attorney on any or all subjects or matters authorized. Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.072, for the purpose of discussing the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.074, for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or to hear complaints or charges against a public officer or employee. And no voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action that the Board wishes to take as a result of discussions in the closed meeting will take place after the Board reconvenes in open session. The time is now 9:04 p.m.
We will now reconvene and resume the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. The time is now 10:22 p.m. We will now address the items discussed during closed session. Are there any motions?
I move that the board authorize the superintendent of schools to give written notice to Robert Kearney that a proposed action to terminate his term contract is pending before the Board of Trustees.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Justine Durant and seconded by Chris Bell that we authorize the superintendent of schools to give written notice to Robert Kearney about proposed action to terminate his term contract, which is pending before the Board of Trustees. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. We have 5 present trustees who approved this, and there are no opposed, so it's unanimous. All right, is there another motion?
Madam President, I move the board approve the settlement and release agreement for the matter involving Gregory Reinhardt's employment with Spring ISD as discussed in closed session.
Second. It has been moved by Janet Gonzalez and seconded by Justine Durant that the board approve the settlement and release agreement for the matter involving Gregory Reinhardt's employment with Spring ISD as discussed in closed session. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The matter passes unanimously. Is there another motion?
I move that the board issue for a 1-year period, single assignment term contract for those employees who voluntarily agree to relinquish their dual assignment term contracts as recommended by the superintendent in closed session.
Second.
It has been moved by Justine Durant and seconded by Dawn Davis that the board issue for a 1-year period single assignment term contracts to those employees who voluntarily agree to relinquish their dual assignment term contracts as recommended by the superintendent in closed session. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. Is there another motion?
I move, Madam President, I move that the board declare the probationary contract of Sean Netzberg to be void pursuant to Chapter 21 of the Texas Education Code and approve the termination of his employment with Spring ISD. I further move that the board authorize the superintendent of schools to notify Mr. Netzberg of the action taken by the board.
Second. It has been moved by Chris Bell and seconded by Rhonda Newhouse that the board declare the probationary contract for Sean Nitzberg to be void pursuant to Chapter 21 of the Texas Education Code and approve the termination of his employment with Spring ISD. Furthermore, the board authorizes the superintendent of schools to notify Mr. Nitzberg of the action taken by the board. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The vote is unanimous. Is there another motion?
I move that the board issue a school district teaching permit for the purpose of teaching non-core career and technology courses and to authorize the superintendent of schools to notify the Commissioner of Education of the board's action.
Second. It has been moved by Rhonda Newhouse and seconded by Justine Durant that the board issue a school district teaching permit for the purpose of teaching non-core career and technology courses and to authorize the superintendent of schools to notify the Commissioner of Education of the board's action. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. There are no other items on tonight's agenda, so I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Second? Second. Okay, it is moved by Justine Durant, seconded by Janet Gonzalez, that we adjourn tonight's meeting. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. There being no further business, this meeting is officially adjourned at 12:26 p.m.
No.